What's up? So the last time I did a Facebook Live, I didn't have this big old thing hanging off of my face. So I'm testing out the beard thing to see, how, I don't know, see what kind of potential I have here. It's getting pretty itchy and a little annoying. I think I may be trimming this thing off. I don't know. Anyway, last time I was on, didn't have this big old thing hanging off my face. So I wanted to jump on really quick and I wanted to talk about 5 forms of resistance, and I want to talk about the paradox of difficulty. Okay, so a few weeks ago, I'm part of a mastermind, and my coach's coach came on, and she talked about these 12 or 13 forms of resistance, and I want to talk about the 5 that really kind of stood out to me, and maybe you'll resonate with them. And I want to talk about the paradox of difficulty. Okay, so if I look off the screens, because I've got some notes, and I don't want to leave anything out. So pretty much resistance comes up. You know, I've coached over the last decade, I've coached over 1,100 men and women, right? Become stronger versions of themselves, move better, feel better, and ultimately like lead their family by example, okay? And of all the years of coaching people, I noticed many people that came to us or people that even worked with us continued to struggle no matter how many workout programs they had, no matter how many meal plans, no matter how many, one-on-one talks that we would have, would struggle, right? There's these forms of resistance that are holding them back, right? And so resistance comes in all forms, and usually it creeps up whenever you're stepping out of your comfort zone. Whenever you're going to do something new, you're going to have these forms of resistance pop up, right? And it's ultimately what it is it's your ego. That's what it is. It's your ego trying to defend you because it thinks that you're literally going to die because it's something out of your comfort zone, and it literally thinks that you might die. Okay. And this is the paradox of difficulty. Okay. So from a literal perspective, all right, without resistance, there is no growth, right? Our body always wants to seek that path of least resistance. But the truth is, it requires resistance to see growth. It requires pressure to create diamonds, right? And literally to get stronger, you need repetition and you need resistance, right? So this idea of we want to do things with as little resistance possible, that's not how we actually grow, okay? So that's the paradox of difficulty there. From a biological perspective, we have this like innate survival mechanism, right? So our brain seeks basically 3 things. It seeks to keep us alive, to keep us safe, and to seek the path of least resistance. And, it served us pretty well, right? In like the ice ages and the stone ages when little like tigers and bears were chasing us, right? It served us very well because we never knew when we were going to have to call on every single ounce of strength that we had to survive, to climb the tree, to jump over whatever it was, right? But here's the thing. It's the same survival mechanisms that drive us to avoid difficulty, okay? These are the same exact mechanisms that are holding you back from your purpose, from a life of purpose, and holding you back from living a life of fulfillment, okay? And literally getting after it and doing the things that you know that you should be doing. So if you have a pattern of starting things, stopping things, right? Many of us, we start programs, we start whatever it is, whatever project or task that we're going to start, we start them with good intentions, right? We start them with good intentions. I have good intention on losing weight or, getting a certification or like whatever that is. We started with good intentions, but we never follow through, right? Here we are, we are at the end of January. What are the statistics? I don't know. 80% of people have already kind of given up on the whole weight loss thing, right? So remember, it's your ego that is seeking to keep you alive and to keep you safe, okay? And literally what it does is it will manufacture forms of resistance. I'm finishing up reading a book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, I think it is. He calls this the upper limit problem, okay? He calls this your upper limit problem. Once you get to a state of that basically your subconscious can handle how happy you can be, you start to go through these natural forms of resistance to pull you back down because you feel like you're going to die. You feel like you're not worthy of, of that level of happiness. Okay. So here's the secret. What's going on here? Here's the secret. is you need to, if you can recognize resistance, right, when it's happening, then you're going to have a much easier way of navigating that. This thing keeps moving around here. Navigating that form of resistance, all right? So before I get into the 5 forms of resistance, I'm going to share a little bit about mine, right? So I have forms of resistance, right? I'm a regular dude, just like you, okay? I'm insecure. I self-sabotage myself at times. There are things that I feel like I don't deserve, right? I can have success in my business one day, like, oh, we had great success, this happened, and then literally like I fall into, so one of my default forms of resistance is confusion. Like I can have a great period of success, but if I haven't made a sale in 24 hours, or if something didn't go the way that I wanted to, all of a sudden I'm confused. I don't know what actions I should be taking. And I feel like the world's going to fall apart and everything's just going to go wrong, right? Which it's not true, right? But that's just one of my default forms of resistance based off of past experiences, based on, a bunch of other things. Okay. So, feeling like a failure, feeling that I don't deserve things, these are, and then ultimately leads to feeling confused. These are my forms of resistance. And it's stuff that I can now be aware of. Like I already know what my default form of resistance is. So now I can become more aware of it. That way, when it happens, I can easily navigate it and move forward versus staying trapped in that perpetual cycle, all right? Ultimately not get anything done. So here are the 5 forms of resistance that resonate with me on a previous call. And I want to share them with you. And if they resonate with you, let me know. Drop something in the comments, okay? And this is actually something that I've seen very common with the people that I've worked with over the last decade. So form of resistance number 1 is research and planning. This is a big one, okay? This happens almost after confusion, right? So let's say you naturally fall into confusion as well, and you don't know what actions, you don't know what steps that you should be taking. Your ego starts to think, well, I need to do more research. I need to take another certification. I need to read another book. I need to, I need more workouts. I need more recipes, or I need more, like whatever that is. We think that we need more research, right? Ultimately, what we become is we become a man of consumption versus becoming a man of production. And that is a big one. We become a man of constantly consuming information, but not really taking action on any of it. And I think a lot of it is, again, just to satisfy our ego so we can say, oh, well, at least I did it, right? So how many times have we gone grocery shopping, right? We've gone grocery shopping. We've kind of planned a lot of things out. And then once we get home, like we order a pizza, or we pick up fast food. Like how many times have we done that, right? And so here's the thing that you want to ask yourself. Do I have enough information right now to take the next step? And the goal is, the answer is usually yes, right? You need to, one of the big things is trusting yourself that you're going to make the right decision and then making the decision, right? Number 2 is procrastination. Now, when I say procrastination, I'm not talking about kicking back and watching Cobra Kai, binge watching Cobra Kai on Netflix or anything like that. By the way, I haven't seen the 3rd season yet. So don't spoil it for me. I haven't seen the 3rd season of Cobra Kai. Used to be on YouTube, and all of a sudden YouTube screwed it up and Netflix picked it up, and we don't have Netflix. So I don't know how I'm going to solve that problem. But procrastination, I'm not talking about, oh, I'm going to, watching this instead of doing my workout, or taking some time off, right? That's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about procrastination. When I say procrastination, I'm talking about doing all the little things that you shouldn't be doing, right? You do them to avoid doing the big thing, right? Brian Tracy calls this eating the frog, right? So let's say you work out in your garage, okay? Or you're going to work out in your garage. And then all of a sudden, you're like, well, I got to clean the garage first. I got to move some of this stuff around before I get my workout in, right? That's procrastinating. That's doing the little stuff that you don't need to be doing, because then by the time you're done cleaning, you're like, oh man, I didn't get my workout in because I was busy cleaning the garage, right? So Brian Tracy calls this eating the frog. Doing the most uncomfortable thing first, that thing that's going to move you forward, doing that first. And that way, it's, again, this is the most important thing. And if you think you have like, oh, I've got 2 big things. Here are 2 things these 2 things are really important. So I really need to get these done first. Brian Tracy says, then eat the ugliest frog first. So essentially eating that frog, okay? Number 3 is a lack of resources or excuses, all right? So if you hear yourself say, well, I can't because ... right? Or, in order for me to get my workout in, I need to do blank first before I can exercise. In order for me to exercise, I need to, I don't know. I think you got the idea, right? We come up with different excuses or lack of resource. In order for me to exercise, I need to go buy this equipment. In order for me to exercise, I need to get this gym membership. In order for me to exercise, like, well, what's the one I hear? You've probably heard a lot of these, but like you hear things like, oh, before I go to a gym, before I go work out, like I need to lose weight first. Like I've heard some pretty interesting stuff. Like none of that makes sense, right? But these are just forms of resistance, okay? So again, it's looking for that small step that you can take and then taking that step, right? So always, the goal is always just taking action regardless to get some kind of feedback. I love number 4. Number 4 is thinking that you're special, right? The only person that thinks you're special is your mom, okay? You don't get to skip the rules. You don't break the rules. You don't get to skip steps because you think your situation is different, right? So, you don't get to, I don't know, you don't get, let's say like strength training, like, right, with kettlebells, right? I coach kettlebells. You can't skip one-handed swings or cleans. You can't skip you can't skip learning how to deadlift before you start snatching, right? You can't skip to doing the clean and jerk because it's the cool, awesome exercise. You can't skip the strict press, those kind of things before you get there, right? You're not special. You can't skip those steps, right? So none of that stuff's magically going to happen for you, all right? You got to do what I call lifting the weights. That's doing the hard work, okay? And specifically, so you hear me, I talk a lot about doing that deep inner work. You cannot skip doing that deep inner work, figuring out what the hell's going on deep inside of you, of why you haven't taken action towards something, right? You can't, I don't want to talk about that. Oh, I don't want to address that. Guess what? You're going to continue to stay stuck where you're at. So you can't avoid doing that deep inner soul work, getting clear on what's been holding you back, all right? You cannot skip that. Because if you do, you're gonna have more forms of resistance that pop up, all right? And then number 5 is a big one, okay? Number 5 is fear, all right? And this is where your ego takes out the big guns. It's tried everything. It's thrown procrastination at you. It's thrown, confusion. It's thrown research and planning. It's thrown all these things at you. And maybe none of those have worked to derail you. So it pulls out the big guns, and the last one is fear, okay? And now, here's when you start to experience fear, and when I say fear, I'm not like, oh, I'm afraid of something. Fear is, again, it's resistance. Example. I've heard some doozies in my time. I don't like to prep food because I just don't like cooking. I just don't like cleaning the dishes. So your fear is, I got to clean the dishes, or that you got to go grocery shopping. Like you're like, oh man, I'm going to have to prep and buy all this food. These are forms of fear as forms of resistance keeping you from holding you back, right? Oh man, I think I'm going to have to, I don't know, work out for an hour or something like that. These are things that you're afraid of, not like deathly afraid of, but they are forms of fear that hold you back. So don't allow your ego to think, oh, I'm not afraid of anything, so I don't have fear. We all have fear in some capacity, right? So it doesn't mean that you're a little, that you're not afraid of anything. That's not what fear is. Here is essentially what fear really is. And my mentor, Rick, put this in I never really heard it from this perspective. And it made a lot more sense to me of what fear is. Fear is acknowledging that which has control over you, okay? Fear is acknowledging that which has control over you. So, I'm a man of faith. I'm a God-fearing man. And you hear this, if you haven't, you've probably heard this, like, the fear of God or something like that, right? It doesn't mean that you're supposed to be afraid of God or he wants you to be afraid of him. It's acknowledging that which has control over you, right? Which is why, in a sense, you shouldn't really fear death, because death has no control over you, right? All that ended in the crucifixion and the resurrection, right? So what are you acknowledging that has power over you? Circumstance, those things, okay? So what are ways that you're, allowing different circumstances, you're giving meaning? Once we have some kind of fear and then we give meaning to it, that makes it even bigger, right? And so just know that when you're on the cusp of like transformation and you feel fear coming up, you're right there. You're right on that cusp of transformation. But if you allow what Nicole, what her coach said, what she called your terror barrier, that kind of like that, and this is what 𝗀𝗄𝗃 talks about, that upper limit problem. Once you reach that upper limit problem, your terror barrier, and you allow fear to take over, you're ultimately going to back down. And the problem with that is once you come up to it again, you're going to have more anxiety, you're going to have more fear, and you're going to have more resistance to take action on these things. Okay, these creates more anxiety and it just creates more resistance. Okay, and just know that the closer you are to fear, that means that there's some kind of breakthrough, there's something on the other side of that. All right, and this is what 𝗀𝗄𝗃 refers to as your upper limit problem. So here's one thing. So what do you do, right? So what do we do with all this information now, right? Well, one thing is you'll never get rid of these. There'll never be a day where you don't have procrastination. There will never be a day where you don't have like, oh, I think I need to do more research and planning. And research and planning there's nothing against, like I'm about strategy and planning, but not when it becomes a form of resistance, because research and planning can also be forms of procrastination, right? There's a lot of these intertwined with each other. Okay, a lot of them are intrinsic together. So don't allow those things to create forms of resistance, right? So here's what you need to do. So you're never going to get rid of them. They're part of your human condition, part of your experience. The good thing is, what you need to do is get good at recognizing these. Okay, which one's my default? So for me, I know confusion is my default. Okay, so I'm just going to recap the 5 that I covered. So the thing what you need to get clear on is it research and planning? Is it procrastination? Is it a lack of resources, right? I don't have the equipment, I don't have the foods, I don't have whatever, right? Is it thinking that you're special? Is it thinking that you can, skip steps and I guess take the easier road, if you will? Or is it fear? Like what fears do you have coming up around planning your foods? Or what fears do you have around getting in your workout? Or what fears do you have around coming home early? Another one of my fears was leaving home early at the end of the day, right? I felt like if I left early, that I was going to miss out on work, that the business was going to fall apart, that I wasn't going to be able to, I don't know. Those are fears that I had, and it kept me from showing up like the man, husband, and father that I've been called to be. I've got a really strong, solid family life, but I know it could be better, right? I know that it could be better. So that was a form of resistance for me as well. But now that I can recognize those, right? Like I know when I'm starting to feel these emotions. I think it was 𝗀𝗃𝗃, one of Nicole's friends and mentors as well. 𝗀𝗃𝗃 said, emotions they're road signs. And this made a lot of sense. I just realized, like, oh, hello, yeah. Emotions are road signs. Fear, procrastination, like all these things that we feel, these are road signs. And if you're seeing the same road sign over and over, that means you're going in circles. And you're never really going to get anywhere, right? And if you're seeing the same road sign, you're doing something wrong, right? If you're having the same emotion over and over for years in a lifetime, you're doing something wrong, okay? So here's what you can do. All right, I'm gonna leave you with these things, these 4 things. The next time that you feel fear, procrastination, you feel any of these, pay attention to how you feel. How does it make you feel? How are you responding, right? Number 2, which of the 5 forms of resistance, right? Keep these handy. I'll repeat them here again in a minute. Keep these handy and refer to them on which one that's kind of like your default that you're getting stuck on, which is the one that's really holding you back. That way you can anticipate when it's going to happen so that way you don't give that situation meaning, okay? Number 3, get to a point, again, where you can acknowledge the resistance, okay? And move forward and take action anyway, right? And the number 4, list 3 to 5 actions that you can reflect on of why you didn't take action. And don't BS yourself. Don't try to kid yourself. Like, get really real why you didn't take action on the thing. Okay? So I'm gonna list the 5 forms of resistance one more time. Research and planning, procrastination, lack of resources and excuses, thinking that you're special, and fear. Which of those do you feel like is your kind of default form of resistance? Run through those 4 little bullet points that I mentioned at the end, and I'll put them in the comments below so that way you can take a look at them. And just keep them handy so when life does get in the way and it does try to kick you when you're down, because that's going to happen because you're never going to get rid of these things, you can be more aware of what's happening and not give those things meaning. That is where things start to go wrong, is when we give things meaning. That's when things start to change. All right, so that's all I had. I wanted to jump on and share that with you. Let me know which one of the forms of resistance you resonate with most. Drop it into the comment section, and I'll even list them out and list the 4 things that I recommend you do so that way you can better navigate and ultimately take action regardless, so that way you can finally live a more balanced life, show up better as a man, husband, and father, and ultimately lead your family from the front with strength and not from a place of fear, because fear is just a form of resistance. And fear is simply acknowledging that which has power over you. All right? So have a good night, guys, and I will talk to you next time. Yo, what's up, man? Thank you so much for watching that video. If you've been stuck for the last several months, several weeks, several years, and you're not sure why you're not making progress, you're not sure how to overcome some of those forms of resistance, I put together a free download for you called 11 Progress Destroying Blunders that you're making with your strength and fat loss efforts right now. So if you're not sure why you're not making progress, more than likely you're violating and committing one of these 11 blunders. So I've worked with over 1,100 men in the last decade, and many of them have been making these blunders the whole entire life. Once they got clarity on them, they were finally able to move forward and actually see progress, so that way they can lead their family from a place of strength and not from a place of fear. So in the description area, you will find a link that will take you to my blog so you can grab a free copy of the 11 Progress Destroying Blunders. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.